Hello there YouTube, it's been a shitty, grey, dismal and very, very English day, completely devoid of any kind of inspiration or meaningful endeavour. So I thought I'd try to ameliorate that just a little bit by answering Kalel Prime's talk Transformers, in which he was discussing the comparison between old school and new school, and between the various different lines of Transformers that exist out there. Now, I was born in 1984, so I can't remember a time when there weren't Transformers. I didn't really get into Transformers until late on, until around the 1986-87ish mark. I knew they existed, and I loved the cartoon and everything, but I didn't really have any of the toys or anything to that effect. But when I got into them in a really big way. I mean, I got everything I possibly could. If I got a Transformer for my birthday or for Christmas or anything to that effect, over and above any other toy, then it was the best time ever. So I do have quite a profound sentimental attachment to Generation 1. But despite that, I don't really regard Generation 1 as in any way superior to any of the other lines, to be quite honest. There are elements from Generation 1 that I absolutely adore, and the sentimental attachment is one of those factors. But I think it's more of a case of there being elements from all Transformers lines that are both laudable and lamentable, and in some one outweighs the other. And my opinion changes quite a lot as well. I mean, I remember when I first came across Beast Wars, I'd fallen out of Transformers over the Generation 2 period. I'd collected the few issues of the comic that came out over here in Britain. There weren't many. We got up to about, I think it was about issue 5, and then they just stopped for some reason. I don't really know why. Whereas in America, of course, they went on, and you had that whole business with the Swarm and the alliance between Megatron and Optimus Prime, which was absolutely wonderful. I love the Generation 2 comics. But the toys really didn't enthuse me. I picked up one or two, but by and large I didn't like them very much. And when the first Beast Wars toys came out, my initial reaction was just one of absolute horror. I thought they were just the worst things I'd ever seen. And for me, at that point, it was sort of like, oh, this is the death knell of Transformers. They don't understand what they're doing with them anymore, and blah 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 blah. An entirely reactionary opinion, which I strive not to have anymore. However, later on, when I started watching the show, and when I actually bought some of the toys, I realised that actually, no, there are some fantastic pieces in this line. And the cartoon, trying to compare Beast Wars to the Generation 1 cartoon is fairly absurd, because although I do have a sentimental attachment to the Generation 1 cartoon, I do remember sitting watching it when I was a kid on Saturday mornings on Whack-A-Day and absolutely loving it. From a purely objective perspective, as an adult and as a collector, as I don't know, a connoisseur of animation, if you like, I do love my cartoons. The Generation 1 cartoon is awful. If you remove the sentiment and the nostalgia factor, it's largely awful. The animation is terrible, the characters are not even two-dimensional, they're one-dimensional, they're stereotypes attached to the toys and nothing else. The storylines are by and large ridiculous, and they just repeat the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. That said, there are one or two examples that are fine, that are actually really good. I like, I think Call of the Primitives is a good Generation 1 episode. Webworld is my favourite Generation 1 episode, and like all of the Generation 1 episodes I actually like. The reasons I like it are, I think, by and large unintentional. It's the sense of humour in Webworld that I like more than anything. The whole concept of Galvatron having to have psychiatric therapy, and the lines that he has are absolutely wonderful. Galvatron has some of the best lines in that cartoon. But no, by and large, the Generation 1 cartoon, just in terms of quality, simply doesn't compare to the likes of Beast Wars, Beast Machines, or animated. It does fare very favourably, I believe, next to the Unicron Saga. I cannot abide the cartoons for the Unicron Saga. They hurt. It hurts me to watch them. the crappy animation, the awful translation from Japanese to English, and that terrible voice acting. No, I can't. I just cannot. It hurts. Particularly Cybertron. I think Cybertron, the cartoon, everything is wrong. The voice acting is appalling. The animation, they've tried to do this awful thing where they've melded very bad CGI with very bad cell animation, and they've done it badly. It doesn't work. It's awful. And combined with that, you have the most ludicrous, absurd storylines you could possibly imagine. You know, I'm by and large a fan of Japanese animation. I love anime, and even some of the cartoons that are aimed at children, I think, from Japan are absolutely brilliant. But those, I just cannot get them, despite the fact that the concurrent toy lines are fantastic, and I think Cybertron in particular is wonderful. The Cybertron toy line, it combines all of the very best elements from Energon and Armada with a more classics universe feel in terms of the stylistics. They have the Transformers seem to have a much harsher edge. I mean, if you look at Soundwave, the Cybertron Soundwave, he is beautiful. He's so gorgeous. The angles on the thing. He looks evil. He looks so malevolent. And he also looks like a very fitting evolution of Generation 1 Soundwave. There are beautiful homages paid to it. But no, there is. I don't think there is any one particular line I favour over any other. I just take the individual elements from each one that I like, and I take them as they come. At the moment, the one that is, I mean, Generation 1 will always have a special place in my heart. It will, because it's the one I grew up with, and it does have, regardless of my critical faculties, it has that sentiment, and it has that attachment that means that I'll forgive it. I'll forgive it for more than I would forgive any of the other toy lines. I'll forgive the Pretenders for being shoddy. I'll forgive the crappy Scramble City Combiner limbs. I'll even forgive the cartoon show for being, by and large, awful. Because this is one of the things I think that as adults we sometimes do forget about Generation 1, and that is that initially it was aimed at children. There was no pre-existing adult fan base that the creators of Generation 1 had to consider when they were creating either the toys or the cartoon show. And in that regard, it was a success bar none, because it is a phenomena that has endured in a way that I don't think any other cartoon show has, or toy line. I mean, there are those that have a similar element of nostalgia about them. Thundercats is definitely one. I think that definitely comes a close second, along with the likes of G.I. Joe, although that wasn't as popular over here in Britain. And there are certain lesser ones as well, like Jason the Wheeled Warriors and Inhumanoids and that sort of thing, that are also still popular in a very cult way. But no, considering what it achieved, Generation 1, in its entirety, as a toy line, as a comic, as a cartoon, considering that it engaged us to such a degree that we're still talking about it now, some of it, you know, into our early 20s, some of us into our 30s, it's impossible to say that it didn't succeed. It did beautifully. I mean, these characters are still engaging, the toys are still so popular that some of them go for thousands of pounds. We still have conventions that we flock to in hopes of snapping them up. But that said, in qualitative terms, I'm not so attached to Generation 1 that I cannot see and acknowledge its flaws. It has many, many, many flaws in comparison to some of the other lines, just as the other lines have flaws in comparison to it.